Avital, could you talk us through a little bit about your work that you have in the video wing?
Sure. First of all, thank you for including me. I'm very happy to be here with everyone. And I've seen some of the work and it looks really interesting and intriguing and relevant. So thank you. As for my work, I'm really interested in performance when it comes to AI algorithms. And I'm sort of worried about the asymmetric relationship in which these algorithms are looking at us, but we never know how we are seen through their lens.
Wow.
So in my project, I happened to find an algorithm that is off the shelf, and I specifically looked at how it recognizes me as a white person. So, which I don't identify as white, but around all the tension, regarding racial labels, I was curious to see how it would recognize me. So basically, I was spending time with it and becoming familiar with it, which is something that I feel is crucial today, to be familiar with these systems and see how they see us. And then in the time that I spent with that algorithms, I realized that it mostly recognizes me as, a borderline white. But then if I change my facial expression or the way my hair is styled, so it would see me less white or more white. If I cover my eyebrows, it would see me as more white, for instance. If I do this gesture, so it usually would see me as less white. And by spending time with the algorithm, kind of like becoming familiar with the movements that I need to do in order to change or trick it or sabotage the way it sees me, I think there is some sort of a revelation of how racist and biased it is. Obviously, it's not looking at my skin color. It mostly looks at other gestures that we as a society used as kind of like racial signifiers.
Yeah.
It's
so interesting sort of to see all the work, and it's something that we talked about with another artist. And the reason that, even though we're having a community conversation, the reason that we think that art is so important with this, it's that it's a way to sort of talk about these things that feel so intangible. Like we can talk about racist AI, we can talk about algorithmic discrimination, but it's really the role of artists as content creators to bring that in. And sort of so like your video is just fantastic, because it really shows how subjective and flawed these algorithms are, and it really sort of makes us question, like, why do we even have this in the first place? Can I ask where you found that that sort of off the shelf AI?
Yeah,
and sort of what you think
it's available on GitHub.
What do you think it's for?
So I feel like a lot of the development of this technology is actually a good development that maybe we would need in the future once it's becoming, more sophisticated and accurate and more well thought of. But at the moment, the technology is very young, and a lot of the people who are able to do it, in my opinion, they just become very enthusiastic of, the gimmicky part of it, the fact that it works and it can do things, and, and I think the whole social implication is not very well thought of. So, I think we're in a moment in which, for me, as an artist, it's really easy to look at this technology and say, this technology is absurd. It's just, like Eyal said, it doesn't make sense. You only need to kind of like have this common sense to say, I don't think it should be used, But as a scientific, exactly like Eyal said, if we can stop for a minute and think about it in a more scientific and socially engaged kind of like intersection of the two ways of thinking, maybe eventually we can find ways to use it in a good way. But in the meantime, it's really young and
Mhm.
not very reliable and scary in a way.
That'd be interesting to see how it would read me. Like if I didn't have my black hair, maybe covered my eyebrows. I thought your video was fantastic. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed when you took off the wig and just the way that the percentages went up and down, just with different, even just facial expressions that you made. Like you explained, covering the eyebrows or moving your eyes or your hair color and all those different things. So that was a very interesting presentation, and I'd be really curious to try it out myself to see how that reads me.
Mhm.
Thank you. And I'm sure, the fact that it read me this way or another, it's important for me to say that it might not work the same way for other people, because it looks at the external appearance, which is, another problem. And I did let other people try playing with it. And obviously the results were very different. It was really interesting as well.
Yeah, it's so fascinating also to have something that where you're able to really sort of like play with it, and on the one hand like expose the sort of like the flaws in it, or where it's a sort of reading or misreading things, and sort of like the facial contortions. And it also it's just the like the subjectivity of it, and it's what you said, it's that it's so young, it's and I think always sort of questioning this as people, like, do we need this? What is it doing? How bad could this get? Like Eyal's video, but if you haven't had a chance to watch it, it's on the one hand sort of really confronting the just sort of like the extreme dangers of artificial intelligence and sort of detecting criminals and detecting race, and how if you take that to the nth degree. And then he's also using sort of those deep fakes, and I just think it's so beautiful and so poignant, and to get something that just like does it in like 45 seconds where you're just like, yeah, okay, I get how this is bad. It's just like that to us is sort of why we really sort of care and value the art. So it's just it's been this exhibition has been awesome just to put together and to see all the work. And we were just so struck by how strong all the work was. We were just like, yes, these artists are awesome and they get it. And they're making work that's sort of like big and meaningful and impactful and about so much more than just, pretty pictures. And
And I mean, it'd be interesting. I got so many questions looking at your video, specifically thinking about that percentage, right? That's what got me thinking about who uses this. I know you talked about it a little bit. It's so young, it's so new. I mean, whose ever hands those could be in, like at what percentage do I get cut off, right? Or when can my life depend on maybe my eyes were just a little bit more tired this morning, or whatever it may be? Can that percentage really cost me my life, or cost me a job, or cost me whatever it might be?
Correct. Yeah. Also, when you come to think about it, some labels are very obvious, like the male and female labels. So, maybe I would be recognized in higher confidence as a female, and that can cost me my job after a while. But even if it doesn't recognize me as a female, it's enough that it would be able to recognize me wearing lipstick, for example. So it doesn't have to be necessary that obvious into the labels of like race and gender and age. It can also use some other labels that are just as problematic, but not as obvious. And then the systemic bias is really at work when it comes to that.